Right.
Okay. All right, Davis. Let's go back to Fitzroy Lodge. You'd been there as a successful youngster, and there came a day when basically you, in a way, fell out, I suppose, with the management, and you kind of said you wanted to do your own thing, and they believed you should be part of the coaching setup there. Does that mean it's fair to say you're quite a headstrong person?
Yeah, I've always been a headstrong individual. Never been one to be easily influenced. Always seem to learn from. I like to learn from my own mistakes. In some ways that's a bad thing, but at the end of the day, I have to go for it. If I go for an experience on my own, for me to actually take something from it.
When was the first time you saw a boxing match?
I can't actually remember the first boxing match I saw. My mum and dad were big boxing fans, so I grew up around boxing. It was always at home. My parents would stay up late to watch the big American fights. So I'll probably there watching them from the ages of 2 or 3. It's all I've ever wanted to do. So the first boxing match I can't remember, but it's probably before I could talk. I watched it.
You've seen a lot of fights, obviously. Then, is there any pro boxer you took a shining to?
Yeah, there's a few boxers that I've took a shine to over the years. One in particular, Roy Jones Jr. For me, he's one of the best fighters I've ever seen. Pound for pound, he's the man. If I want to try and emulate something that what he's got, I'll be a very happy man. There's another one, Evander Holyfield. I appreciate the way he went to the Olympics at light heavyweight. Then he boxed as a professional at cruiserweight. He was undisputed cruiserweight champion, and then went up to heavyweight, and then was undisputed heavyweight champion. And for him to go up through the weights like that really means a lot to me, because hopefully I could do something of the same.
Going back to Roy Jones Jr. then, the thing I understand about him is, technically he's very, very skilled. Can you talk to us a bit about that?
Yeah, the skill factor of Roy Jones is something else. He's so much faster, so much more technically sound than any other boxer out there. It's like he's not actually a boxer. He does a completely different sport to everyone else. Or it seems like that, because it's not competitive. It's not exciting watching the Jones fight, because it's not two individuals at the same level. He's just so much above everyone else. It's more of an exhibition than actually a boxing match. So if I could just say, some point in the future, my fights could be like that, it'd be a lot safer sport for me to do. So that's what I'll try and do.
When was the first time you boxed competitively?
My first fight competitive thing, I was just turned 12. Just turned 12, I think it was. Sorry. My first fight, I think it was when I was 11 years old. I was really nervous. I've been training for 2 years, and I really just couldn't wait to get in the ring. But when I got there, I couldn't believe how nervous I was. My legs felt like jelly, and the fight only lasted 12 seconds because I knocked the guy out. I was run out there, the first punch I landed, I done the poor kid, and it pretty much all started from there.
You said you'd been training for 2 years by the time you were 11.
Yeah.
I mean, so as a 9-year-old, what was it that was driving you to this sport?
Since the age of 3 or 4, from the time I could walk, I was always punching. That was my party piece at home. I'd be running around in parties punching people in the kneecaps, and everyone used to say then he's got a really hard punch. So I just sort of nurtured that, and my dad didn't want to take me to a boxing club before I was 10 years old. He always said, when you're 10 you can go to a boxing club, but not before then. And I think that was the right move, because if I'd went there when I was 6 or 7, I probably lost interest. But 10 years old was a good age, and I went there and it was not easy at all. I wasn't the most natural boxer. I'd had a lot of raw strength, but the skill factor wasn't there one bit. And I took a few beatings at first, but that's what it takes to get some discipline in yourself. And I slowly but surely came on, and the rest is history.
Just take us back to that when you first step in as a young boy into a boxing club environment. I mean, what are your feelings like, if you can remember them?
The feelings of going to a boxing club was very intimidating. I've heard a lot about a boxing club. I didn't know what it was about. I didn't know if I'd have friends there or not, because I was still in primary school at the time. So I was used to like the playing around sort of factor and messing about. And when I got to it, it was so serious. Everyone was just training and there's no laughing. And so I thought to myself, hold up, it's not a play centre here. So I tried to mess about a bit, but there's a lot of discipline involved in the youngsters in the amateur boxing club. So that was good to instill some discipline in me. So I just carried on from there, and I'm here today.
Let's jump right forward now to last year, the World Championships. You get to the final, you're the first British boxer to reach the final at that level. Just that fact in itself, was that something you were thinking about as you entered the fight?
Yeah, the tournament, yeah. Going into the World Championships, I honestly felt I could win the World Championship. Everyone thought I was crazy. They said I was a pumped up light heavyweight. I wasn't a very big heavyweight at all. I was the smallest guy there. Everyone said, you're not really going to do anything, but just if you can win 2 fights, then you'll be lucky. But the way I saw it, I trained so hard, and everything was focused on the World Championships. I think I did about two or 3 months training for the World Championships, and there's no way that I was going to come out in the early stages. I had the skill, I had the strength, even though I was a lot smaller than everyone else. I've been doing a vigorous weight training program up until the World Championships, so I had a lot of strength, a lot more strength than people thought I had. And when it came to it, I actually went all the way and got to the finals, but I just fell short in the finals against the world champion.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about that. Solis had already beaten Felix Savon twice, I think, in the run-up to the... Was that something you thought about?
Yeah, obviously going into a tournament and there's a guy there who is pretty much, everyone knows he's the best fighter in the world at heavyweight. So I thought it was a main aim of mine. I knew he was going to be there. It's always been my ambition to fight Felix Savon, but he retired as just before the World Championships. So that was a bit of a shame because I've always wanted to fight Savon. But obviously I've got to fight the guy who's beaten Savon on a couple of occasions. So that was a daunting task, going into the ring against a guy who everyone was expecting me to just get blown away in the first round. But I gave him a run for his money, gave him a few shocks on the way through. But the way the Cuban had the World Championships, every one of his fights were against guys who were petrified of him. All the people were trying to do was get through the fight as safely as possible, and he was happy with that. So he just floated around the ring, just pretty much just put an exhibition on and beat the guys comfortably. But with me, I weren't going to go out like that. I wasn't going to come out and just go the distance and be happy with a silver. I wanted to go out all guns blazing, and I went out there toe to toe, blow for blow, and I rocked him in the first round, give him a standing count. If it was a pro fight, the referee wouldn't have jumped in and given him a standing count, and maybe I could have finished him, but who knows. But the way it went, I knew going into the fight I only had a couple of rounds in me because I had four fights in 4 days, 4 hard fights in 4 days. So that took a lot out of me. So going into that fight, I was pretty much physically and mentally drained. I had a few injuries. So there's a few people told me I should have pulled out of the fight. I wasn't in a good state to fight, but I knew if I had one good round in me, it could have just been over in 1 round because I knew I've got the punching power to turn a big fight around. By the way it happened, he's got a brilliant chin. I hit him with a great uppercut which have knocked out pretty much anybody, and he seemed to be knocked out. And just before he hit the floor, he sort of woke up and sort of his legs straightened up, and he just sort of staggered backwards. And I was like, oh my God, how could he take that? So that was just like, so I just had to just keep on him. But next thing you know, the round was finished and I'm standing there and I just realised how much of a state I was in. So I just came back out there and had another go, but my energy was going down and his was coming up. So the 3rd round, the referee thought, before I got hurt, to stop the fight. I was okay after the fight. The fight really didn't take too much out of me. But it was a good experience, a good learning experience, and it proved to myself that I'm not that far behind the world champion. He beat Felix Savon twice. I was pretty much, I boxed 9 months as a heavyweight. I was pretty much a newcomer. He had nearly a stone on me, so I thought to myself quietly, I was quietly pleased with my own performance, but obviously I wanted the gold.
Recording.
Okay. Okay, so you talked then about the results. You weren't in all heart then so disappointed to get the silver.
I was disappointed. I think it took a few months before I realised the sort of achievement I've made. No other Briton had ever got a medal going into the 2001 World Championships, but I did. So I got a silver medal, and that everyone after the occasion, after everything settled down, I've realised I've been beaten. So it's the first time I've lost in a few years. So that was a hard task for me to accept, but now I understand that it wasn't my time, and my time will come soon.
Let's talk a little bit about the Cubans. you mentioned you'd always wanted to beat Felix Savon. What did he mean to you as a boxer?
Felix Savon, I think he won the Olympics 3 times, World Championships 4 times. He was a legend, and he will go down in history as one of the best amateur boxers of all time, alongside Tvilio Stevens. So I really wanted to beat him, because he was coming to the end of his career. I knew that I'd seen him in fights before. I studied tapes of him, and I had a strategy to beat him. I really honestly thought I could have beat him. Going into the World Championships, it would have been his last tournament, so I'd have got him on his weakest day in some aspects. On his day, a few years ago, obviously he's pretty much unstoppable, and I was a light heavyweight pretty much. So going into that fight, I feel I could have done something special and shocked the world, but he didn't turn up, and the young gun came through. I think the guy was 21, 22 years old. So he had fresh legs, whereas Savon had old legs, and maybe the shot that the young guy took, Savon couldn't, but we'll never know now.
You talk then about the young guy coming through, and it kind of says that Cuba, in terms of amateur boxing, just keeps producing greats.
Yeah.
What do you think the secret of that success is?
The secret of it is after a guy's had amateur success in a tournament, he doesn't turn professional. Over here, a guy has success. For instance, Audley Harrison had success at the Olympic Games. He won gold. He turns professional. It's a progression. He turns professional. In Cuba, there's no professional boxers. So what is there for them to do? You can just go to the next Olympics. So I think over there's no professionals. So they are pretty much professional boxers out there. You're the best in the world, and you stay the best in the world. You don't become world champion as an amateur and then turn professional straight away. It doesn't happen out there. So I feel they get to look after their boys a lot longer, and their amateur careers, go on 3 or 4 times as long as anyone else in the world.
Okay. You talk then about turning professional. That's something we can talk about now. I mean, you've had offers since you were about 18 to turn pro, but obviously you haven't as of yet. Can you tell us tell us about some of them? Yeah,
I was offered a lot of money when I was, say, 18. I think it's about 100 grand I got offered, and then I got beaten in the ABA championships, and I got offered I think the offers stopped then, because everyone thought, oh God, maybe this kid's not as good as we thought he was. And I was at a really low point after the Olympics, obviously not getting selected. So I just thought to myself, that's it, I want to turn professional now. But the good thing was nothing came of that, and I didn't turn professional. So here I am now. My money's pretty much quadrupled, and I'm worth I'm worth so much more money now than I was then. And I've got so much more valuable international experience, which will help me when I do turn professional. All of my fights I have now for the last 30, 40 fights have been against guys who have been the champion of their countries, and you can't put a price on that sort of experience. I'm used to getting in the ring with top class athletes, and that sort of experience doesn't come easy.
You mentioned then about money and funding. That's come from the lottery, has it?
Yeah, I get a lottery grant from the Sport England, and that's been tremendous over the years in helping me keep my head above water, as to speak. I've only got to work, say, part-time, but obviously it doesn't cover all of my expenditure. It just covers a fraction of it, but that fraction makes a hell of a difference. And without that sort of funding, then I'm not sure where I'd be now.
The fact that you're still here, you're still as an amateur, you obviously got your sights set on the Commonwealth Games this month. I mean, does that say something about how much you want the Commonwealth gold?
Yeah, I really want this Commonwealth gold. It's the only thing that I've focused on since the World Championships. After the World Championships, obviously I had a lot of offers to turn professional, but I wouldn't want to turn professional on a silver medal. I wouldn't want to turn pro as coming up as a runner-up in an international tournament. I'd want to turn professional as the champion, as having a gold medal around my neck, and saying, yep, number one, and let's turn professional. Whether that be after the Commonwealth Games or after the Olympics in Athens, I'm not sure yet. If I was to turn professional after the Commonwealth Games in Athens, I'd probably, if it's possible, I'd get down to cruiserweight. As I said, I idolise Evander Holyfield because he was undisputed cruiserweight champion. Then he went up to heavyweight, and if I could do that, be a 2-weight world champion, that's the ultimate dream. That's what I'd like to do. So if I do turn professional, which I'm not sure if I'm going to do after the Commonwealth Games, I'd probably turn professional as a cruiserweight, then a heavyweight, and then after a few years go up to heavyweight, because I've still got time on my side. I'm 21 years old, which is pretty much a baby in boxing terms.
You're quite slightly built as well, aren't you?
Yeah, I've been keeping my weight down because if I was to go to Athens, I would go there as a super heavyweight. After the Commonwealth Games, I'll start putting weight on to go up to super heavy. But there's been a discrepancy in the AIBA Council where they're trying to take away the super heavyweight limit. And if they do that, then I won't be able to go to Athens because I will be going there at super heavyweight because I can't keep my weight down for the next few years.
Siren.
Sounds great, doesn't it?
Okay, so you talked about turning pro. You talked about your age.
Mm-hmm.
Audley Harrison, Olympic champion, turned pro about 30 years old, obviously much older than you.
Yeah.
What difference do you think that might make to your career when you turn pro?
It pretty much gives me a 9-year head start on him, which sounds a lot. But Audley's 30 years old now, so he's got to cram his career into the space of, say, 5 years, top whack, 5-6 years, where I've got the luxury of being able to take my time and not having to rush everything. Obviously, I'd want to get through my professional career as quickly as possible, but I'm not forced to make big decisions straight away. So I've got the luxury of going to the Olympics, and I'll only be 23 by the time they come round, which is not old to go into the Olympics.
We're here obviously in central London. You train at a gym called the Third Space. Why do you train there?
It's the best facility I've ever seen. Luckily enough, my trainer, the guy who's trained me for the last three years, happened to become the head boxing trainer at the Third Space. So that was ideal. I'll go there and it's got the top of the range facilities. It's got a hypoxic chamber where I can run at the equivalent of 8,000 feet, which is just gives me I feel it gives me a little edge on everybody else facility wise. I've got the best weights trainer in the country. Boxing coach Adam Booth is great. Got a Pilates studio. I do a lot of Pilates as well. So it gives me a very rounded structure to my training.
Just looking at it, it looks the complete opposite of what most people imagine.
Yeah,
sort of an amateur boxer with boxing. Mm-hmm. Did it surprise you, the look of it? Just
not really. As soon as I saw it, I thought, yeah, this is where I want to train. I grew up since the age of 10 in the standard amateur boxing club, and I think I went about as far as I can in that sort of scenario. So going to a gym like this with the facilities that it's got, no other amateur boxer's got the same facilities I have. So that always feels I've got a little edge on everybody else, which really does help.
Let's talk about your life as an amateur boxer. People have this idea at the pro end, say, of the highest end of professional heavyweight boxing particularly. Yeah. It's glamour, tens of millions of dollars. What's your experience of boxing right now?
Boxing right now, a lot of people think because I'm the top heavyweight in the world, I'm ranked number 2 in the world at heavyweight. Everyone expects that I'm getting this crazy money, but at the end of the day, I don't get paid for boxing at all. I get sponsored by the National Lottery, which pays a few bills and a bit of my training expenses, but that's it. So I've got to pretty much pay out of my own money, and I've got to take loans out to pay for the training that I'm getting. But at the end of the day, I feel I'm a first-class athlete, so I want the first-class facilities, and I feel I deserve that. And when I do finally turn professional, I'll be able to pay all that back. So it's more of an investment than anything else.
Is that the hardest aspect of training your life?
Yeah, I think one of the hardest aspects is the financial side of it. A lot of people in my situation would have turned professional. I got offered £500,000 to turn professional after the World Championships, and pretty much I haven't got a pot to pee in. So turning that down it's not about the money to me really. It's about the glory. I want to set records. I want to be the only guy. I'm the only guy now who's from Britain who's got a silver medal at the World Championships. I'm happy with that sort of record. I want to make a difference to amateur boxing.